So I'm making this video today because I had a very interesting conversation with a longtime friend and a longtime client of mine the other day. We were flipping some cards and doing some reading and getting some insight into some things that were going on in her life. And she kind of just took a minute and paused and she said, gosh, she's like, how do you do this? How are you doing this? And I sat and I was like, well, what do you mean? What am I doing? And she goes, well, she goes, you're so accurate with some of these things that you're telling me. She's like, where is it all coming from? Is this coming like up out of the cards? Like, how are you doing this? And I thought, well, that's a really interesting question. And so I wanted to kind of talk about it. When you go in and get a tarot reading, how are people pulling information? Now, everyone does it a little bit differently, but I'm going to talk specifically about how I'm doing what I'm doing. And you can take that and however it relates to you, or if you're just kind of curious about how I work in general. So the way the tarot cards work for me, right? I have a bunch of different ways I can read. One of the ways I read is like the same way any other regular tarot reader would probably read, is by knowing and memorizing the definitions of the cards, right? Anyone can read tarot cards if you can do that. It can be memorization and you can go, solely based off of that and do a reading, right? But what I find makes readings really accurate is when you kind of pull your intuition into it. Now, this is where things get kind of tricky because a lot of people don't understand, well, what does that mean? Because sometimes you just get a bad feeling about a place or a person or a job offer, or just an idea, but how do you really use that and translate it and kind of connect it with the cards to get really valuable information for people? So one of the ways that I do this that works really well for me is that I have really worked on developing my psychic abilities and senses. Now, I kind of hate that word psychic because I feel like, people think I'm like Miss Cleo and I've got a 900 number and I'm just spouting whatever off. But the truth of the matter is that your psychic abilities, if you develop them, they're a really great way to tap in and get extra information for people and for yourself in a variety of situations, not just with tarot cards. For me, tarot cards is one of my gifts. It's one of my specialties. So I apply my abilities and my knowledge and my skills to that, and it gives you a more powerful reading. So some of the ways that I pick up information, if you're curious, right? If these are things you want to develop or things maybe you're already doing, you might recognize, be like, oh, I kind of get a little piece of that, right? So you kind of understand like the nuts and bolts of like what's happening. So for me, when I'm doing a reading, one, I know all the meanings of the cards. So I'll go off of that. The second thing that happens is my intuitive abilities will kick in, right? So I'll get something downloaded from one of my psychic senses or psychic abilities, and that information will come through for that card, right? It might match the meaning of that card, or it might be something else entirely. But whatever it is, I've learned to work with my abilities enough that I can trust what I'm getting. So I'm not like wishy-washy or whatever. Like I know when it's true, and I know when I'm like, I'm not really sure if this information is right. Like I might get like a little whisper of something, right? And I'm like, take that one with a grain of salt. I'm kind of getting this, but I'm not getting a really solid base, right? So always be very accurate about what you're telling people. Like don't guess, but when you know, and then you can share, right? The last way that I get it is I have, guides that I work with, right? And so those guides will also give me kind of help and messages, right? It's like a little person kind of like over your shoulder kind of giving you stuff. And they'll give me that information through my psychic abilities as well, right? So these are all different ways I can work to piece things together to give you the information that you need. So what I do is actually a lot more powerful and introspective than maybe somebody who just has the meanings of the cards memorized, right? Like I have extra things to draw on. So some of the ways that I actually get information are through the psychic senses. So one, I'm clairvoyant, so I'll see things and I'll get flashes of pictures. Sometimes I'll see kind of things moving like a movie screen. I'll get impressions of things like that. I'll be like, who's the person in the blue dress? Because I see someone in a blue dress. So that's one way that I can get it. Being clairaudient means I can hear, right? So it's a psychic hearing. So a lot of times too, if you guys are watching me do a reading, or even just sometimes if you're talking with me in conversation and I'm tapped in or plugged in or there's a message that wants to come through, my eyes will kind of go over this way a little bit, and sometimes I lean in too. My friends have told me I kind of like start leaning this way or like this, or I'll kind of turn my whole head like I'm looking at another person that's talking, and I will get messages that way, right? About whatever it is that's going on. So I'll get a message that I need to relay, and that's where I'll hear it from this side. Now, if people are clairaudient, you might hear it a different way or from a different direction, but it's a message where you verbally hear. It's almost like someone's speaking to you, which is kind of one of, I think, the easier ways to get information. Sometimes too, I'll just get something where I know. I'm like, I just know that that's what's happening. I can't tell you why I know. I have no evidence to back it up, but I know, right? I know it like I know my name, like I know my social security number, like I know the day I was born. I just know it, right? And so that's another way that I'll get something. Sometimes too, I feel a lot of things like sort of in my body. So sometimes too, if there's a lot of stress, I can feel that pressure, or if the pressure gets taken off, I just feel like this weight kind of gets lifted. I'm like, if I'm nervous or scared, I'll feel it in my body. So, there's certain things that I'll pick up too around people or situations that will kind of help give me a little bit of extra information, right? So those are some ways that when I'm working, will get stuff. So you can see how getting information from one or more of those ways can really be helpful and really impact your reading and, give you the information that you need to understand what's happening around you and to allow you to make the best choices for yourself and really allow you to kind of grow, right? And remove those obstacles and those roadblocks that are in your path so you can have what you want, right? So if you are, kind of having a reading from somebody and you're like, how is this working? A lot of people who are intuitive and pick up information, that's one way that they do it. And this is how I do it. So if you get a reading from me, you kind of know a little bit what to expect. So I hope that was helpful. I hope it gives you kind of a better understanding of what you're getting into and kind of how the process works. So if you have any questions, let me know. But until next time, thank you so much for watching and have an absolutely beautiful day.